Emily. I have ADHD, but normally I'm a DIY-er and I focus on creating usable spaces for my neurodivergent family. I say usually because for the second half of 2024, my family lived in Buenos Aires, Argentina. So I want to talk about some frequently asked questions I got while we were in Buenos Aires and Argentina, because there were some interesting ones. The big question, the main question, why were we in Buenos Aires? So my husband works for a company that is all over the world. They have offices all over the world. And he has a very specific specialty that they needed someone at his position level with his specialty that was willing to go for more than a week to Argentina to open up an office to train people in Buenos Aires on his specialty that also was bilingual. So my husband is fluent in Spanish. It is not his native language, but it's his second language, and he's very, very good at it. So that's why we were in Buenos Aires, was because he had the language skill, he was the right position at work, he had the expertise, and we as a family were willing to go for more than a week. We were not willing for him to go for 6 months by himself, and I was willing to uproot us and go. Part of the reason I feel that way is I've actually always wanted to do something like this. As a kid growing up, my grandparents lived in Germany, and we would go and we'd spend summers there, we spent Christmases there, and we traveled all over Europe doing that. And then my dad had a very international job, and so he traveled all over the world, and we would travel with him when possible. And so I've always wanted to do that as a family and with kids, and that's something we've talked about and we've attempted to do in the past, but things got in the way, like COVID. And so this was an opportunity we were presented with, and our kids are still very young, being 7 and 20 months. So this was a really great opportunity for us that we just grabbed onto and went with, because why not spend 6 months in Buenos Aires? What did we do with our house when we were in Argentina? So for some reason, I think one of the videos I made about getting our house ready to be gone for 6 months, I must have edited out that we had people staying in our house, because a lot of people thought that we didn't have anyone staying in our house. For the 6 months we were gone, we had friends that we know from Tennessee that they were in grad school, and their lease was up on their apartment around the same time that we were leaving. They have a small daughter. We know them very well. So they lived in our house while we were gone. So they saved money for 6 months. We had somebody living in our house for 6 months. We only charged them utilities. So it worked out for everybody, because we weren't going to sell our house just because we were gone for 6 months. And they got to pay less money for while they were living in our house. So that's what we did with our house. We did not leave it empty. What did we do for school for our daughter? So our daughter is 7 and she's autistic. And we looked into doing school here in Buenos Aires, and we talked to an education consultant and got some feedback from her. And the biggest thing that we were concerned about was how schools here would handle our daughter's needs at school. So in the US, she has what's called an individualized education plan, which is an IEP. And the school she's at is incredible. They accommodate her so amazingly. We love them. It's a huge reason why we did not sell our house, because we were zoned for that specific school. Even though it's mostly a magnet school, we're in the small population that is zoned for that school. So we're spoiled when it comes to her school in the States. We were very nervous about how that was going to go here in Buenos Aires. We've heard very conflicting things about how schools handle special needs here, and what we heard for the most part was public or private, we would have to pay for her to have an aide, which was the best route for her. She doesn't have a one-on-one aide in the States. She doesn't need one, but because they wouldn't be as accommodating as her school is at home, we would probably need to pay for an aide. So either it'd be super expensive paying for private school and an aide, or we'd still have to pay for an aide, which is not cheap. So we decided to just do homeschool. I will say, having ADHD myself and knowing my autistic daughter and having gone through COVID in 2020 and having to do school with her then, because she was in a special education preschool class at the time, it was hard. It was very hard for me. It was not great for her. And so I had sworn off ever doing homeschool. And this 6 months solidified that for me. There are some people that can do homeschool, and that is great. And there are a lot of people that need to do homeschool, especially for their kids with special needs, because schools in the US are not good about accommodating kids with their special needs. But we are very, very blessed and very lucky and very privileged to have the school that we have. And so when we go home, she'll be going back to school. But anyway, we did homeschool. It was fun. Could it have gone better? Absolutely. Could it have gone worse? Yes. Nobody loved it. And I think that going back, we probably could have done a little bit more research and maybe found a school that was a good fit for her, that would have given her the socialization that she craves. Like, she craves being with other kids. And she loves school. Oh my gosh, she loves school. And so I think that would have been better. But then again, I don't know. So who knows? Did you bring anything you didn't end up needing / using? So there are a few things, and I've done a video on, like a separate video on this, like things that I wish I hadn't brought. There were definitely some clothes that I brought that I didn't use. I think I overpacked clothes-wise. So when we got to Buenos Aires, it was winter, even though it was summer at home because Southern Hemisphere. And then it was summer when we left. And I definitely brought more clothes than I needed to. I think there were just some pieces that when I got here, I was like, why did I bring that? That was ridiculous. And then my hairdryer didn't work in Argentina. Apparently that's not uncommon, even with a transformer. And so, like, I tried it with the one my mom brought when they came to visit, and it didn't work. And so I actually ended up sending my Shark hairdryer home with my mom because I wasn't using it and it didn't work here. So actually, fingers crossed, I need to check with her to make sure it still works. Other things that I brought that we didn't end up using, I brought a bunch of like card games and games for the kids to play, because before we left, my daughter was super into games. Like, she was playing matching games, we were playing card games, we were playing board games, and I thought it'd be fun, and I brought little ones and I put them in bags and I made sure they were super easy to bring. We hardly used any of them. So I really didn't need to bring those. That was kind of a bigger thing that I brought that we really did not need. So if you've been following me for a while, I have a wheat allergy. I was diagnosed in 2010. I had health issues long before that, literally my entire life. I had horrible 2-week-long migraines. I had plantar fasciitis for 10 years that would not go away. I had serious like digestive and intestinal issues. I had weight, like my weight would fluctuate a ton. It was really weird, and we spent a lot of time trying to figure out what the deal was. And then I did allergy testing right before I got my wisdom teeth out, and it turns out I'm allergic to wheat. I don't have celiacs. I don't have a gluten allergy or an intolerance. I have a wheat allergy, so I eat gluten-free. So one of the questions I got a lot is, how is your access to gluten-free food? And I have to say, I've heard about how Europe is really great with gluten-free food. I really haven't spent a lot of time in Europe since my diagnosis, to be honest. But Argentina is far and away beyond incredible when it comes to gluten-free food. So they have this label, it's called sin tac, and it means it is gluten-free, and it's regulated. So in order to have that label, you have to pass the regulation standards, and it's very easy to find sin tac food. You can find it in the grocery stores. You can find it at almost every single restaurant has at least some section of gluten-free stuff. And if they don't have like a section, you can get grilled meat and French fries. It's really not that big of a deal here. But the other thing is, there are so many dedicated gluten-free restaurants, cafes, bakeries. I cannot tell you how incredible the gluten-free bakeries are here. Like, going home is gonna be hard. Not. Like, the standard of which we have for gluten-free food in the States is pathetic in comparison to what is in Buenos Aires. I'm not sure about the entire country of Argentina. I know that when we went to Iguazu Falls that we had a harder time finding it there. It wasn't quite as hard when we went to Puerto Madryn, but in Buenos Aires, it's just super easy to find. It's literally everywhere. There are probably 10 grocery stores within a kilometer of our apartment, which is a little less than a mile, that have either massive gluten-free dedicated sections, or they are like, there are a lot of like health food stores here in Buenos Aires that have like just entire gluten-free sections. So I will very much miss the access to gluten-free food and the quality of the gluten-free food here. As I mentioned at the beginning of this video, I have ADHD. I was diagnosed when I was 16 years old, and I have been taking medication for that since I was 16. I will say in college I was not super great about taking my meds consistently, but it's part of the whole frontal lobe developing. Since I've been married, especially since having kids, I've been very, very good at taking my meds, and I take my meds every day. I don't take a day off. I've talked to my doctors about this. This is something that works for me. We had a really good dosage. So when it comes to my meds in Argentina, so you cannot get stimulants in Argentina. So most stimulant ADHD meds you can't get here in Argentina. So I was very nervous about that and how to deal with that. And so everything I read online said that if you're going to bring your meds, make sure you have your prescription, that you have the bottle, that you know, everything is squared away, so that if you do get stopped and they do look at your medication, because I guess it's technically illegal. I'm not 100% clear on that. That, you know, you're on the up and up, that this is your medication, that you have a prescription for it, you have a diagnosis for it. So what I ended up doing was I contacted my insurance and I talked to them about the best way to go forward. And because of how my insurance was set up, they were able to provide me with a 90-day travel dosage and then an additional 90-day like emergency dose. I don't remember what the exact two different things they used, but it was two different 90-day dosages that they were able to give me. I just needed the prescriptions from my doctor, and so that's what we did. There was a little bit of a mix-up, so I was able to bring 90 days with me, which I ran out of before my mom came to visit, and she brought me the next 90-day bottle. So that was a little interesting at the end of the tail end of that before my mom came with the rest of the meds, but I made it work. And so for an extended period of time, and if you're just coming to visit, if you just bring your meds like in your medicine bottle, it's not a big deal. What trips did we go on? So I really wanted to do a lot of trips while we were in Argentina, and I did not factor in that my husband would be doing a busy season while here. And so for the first like 3 months while we were here, he'd be training and working long hours and not really being able to go anywhere. And so we really didn't get to spend as much time traveling as I wanted to. But we did go to Colonial de Sacramento, which is in Uruguay, and we got on a boat to do that because it's just across the bay. And there are a couple different boat companies that you can buy tickets from. It's just a ferry. And we went with Buki Bus. There is a terminal for Buki Bus in Puerto Madero. And we got on the boat and we went and we spent, it was just an overnight really. And it was really fun. We really liked it. It's a really cute city. It's smaller than if you go to, say, Montevideo, which is the capital of Uruguay, which is like 3 hours away, as opposed to Colonia, which is only like an hour and a half away via boat. And since the baby was not great at traveling up until that point, we went with the hour and a half long trip. That was actually our first trip while in Argentina, outside of Buenos Aires. So that was really fun. And then the next trip we went on was to Iguazu Falls, which is in the north. That's where Argentina, Brazil, and Paraguay all touch. And it's one of the largest system of waterfalls in the world. And it was absolutely incredible. Once in a lifetime trip. So cool. The animals were amazing. The falls were amazing. We stayed on the Argentina side, and there are two different parks. There's the Argentina park and the Brazil park. And I will say, I was surprised at like the town of Iguazu in Argentina as opposed to the town in Brazil. The Brazil side was a lot more developed. Like, we were told that in order to find a decent grocery store, we had to go to Brazil. So that was interesting. But the trip in general was amazing. It was a great experience for our kids. And we also learned that the baby's a pretty good flyer. Now he's gotten a little bit older, and now that he's gone on a couple more flights. So that was good. We did not have a great experience with the airline that we flew with. We flew with Flybondi, which is like the discount airline here in Argentina. And when we flying to Iguazu, our flight was delayed like 6 hours, like a ridiculous amount of time. So we didn't get in until like 3 a.m. And then coming back, they actually completely canceled our flight. And we were supposed to come back on Saturday, and they wouldn't rebook us until the next day. And we were like, no, that's not gonna happen. Because one, we wanna get home on Saturday so that we have Sunday to get back into things and then have my husband go back to work on Monday. But also, how do we know that you're not gonna cancel the flight again? So we rebooked on Aerolíneas Argentinas, which is like the national airline. And that was a great experience, really great. And then when we got back on Sunday, I went and checked again because I was trying to get refunds for the Flybondi flight, and they had canceled our flight that they rescheduled us for on Sunday. So we did get a refund for that, but that was not a great experience. So then after that, we did a couple of day trips to Tigre, which is just north of Buenos Aires. It's a really quick train ride. We didn't do anything overnight up there just because I didn't have a lot of time when we were doing that. But when people came to visit, we took them up there because it's kind of like a delta area. It's where the river hits the bay, and it's very marshy. There are a bunch of islands. It's just really pretty. It's a really fun day trip. And then the last trip we went to Puerto Madryn, which is south, and it's one of the best places to see like marine life in Argentina. It's absolutely incredible. There's a peninsula, it's Peninsula Valdez, and it is a UNESCO World Heritage Site. And there you can see southern right whales, humpback whales, orcas sometimes, seals, sea lions, penguins. It's just absolutely incredible. We also did a guided tour a little bit further south to a point where there are like a nesting place for penguins. Mostly because when we told our daughter that we were coming to Argentina, we told her that we would go see penguins because those were one of her favorite animals, and that's the only way we got her to come here. So we had to go see penguins, and we got to walk with the penguins, and it was super cool. Absolutely loved it. Highly recommend. I have a separate post on that with all the details on where to do that and who we did it with. So those are all the questions that I'm going to cover today. If you have more questions about our trip and our time in Argentina, please leave them in the comments so that I can answer them, and I'll maybe do a separate post about additional questions. And make sure to like and subscribe for more videos like this in your feed. Thanks for watching.